You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WYBC.
WCYTV
Here on the Daily Signal.
Good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WYBC out of Indianapolis. There's a lot to dig into news-wise this evening, so let's not dawdle. Jimmy Kimmel has returned. So according to a statement from the Walt Disney Company, quote, "Last Wednesday, we made the decision to suspend production on the show to avoid further inflaming a tense situation at an emotional moment for our country." Remember that. "It is a decision we made because we felt some of the comments were ill-timed and thus insensitive." That's the issue. I hate corporate speak. You know how much I freaking despise corporate speak. "The synergism of the timing was not appropriate to corporate culture." The comments were disgusting. That's it. That's all you have to say. But no, they were ill-timed. See, if you would have just made fun of Charlie a few weeks from now, it would have been fine. Well, ill-timed. You know why they were ill-timed? Because it was already known it was a far-left activist who committed the violence. A far-left political individual who committed a political crime. And Kimmel went on TV and instead said it was, the MAGA people are trying to say it's not one of their own. That would be the ill timing there. That's not ill timing, though. That's just being stupid. Anyway, Disney continued, quote, "We have spent the last days having thoughtful conversations with Jimmy. And after those conversations, we reached the decision to return the show on Tuesday." The old Popeye quote, "I'll have a hamburger for which I will gladly pay you Tuesday." So I'm sure everyone in the country who's an avid fan of Kimmel, all 6 of them, are going to be eagerly awaiting Jimmy Kimmel's show whenever it airs on Tuesday. Exciting stuff. Now, just as a quick reminder here on the timeline, I'd like to point out that everyone threw a conniption on the left side of the aisle because, see, Jimmy Kimmel had been yanked from the air after saying some gross comments. And then these comments from FCC Chairman Brendan Carr were trotted out when he was on with Benny Johnson. And they were saying, it's because Carr made these threats that ABC, Disney, and Sinclair and Nexstar pulled Kimmel off of the air. So as kind of a wrap-up of why this timeline doesn't quite fit in a little quick summary here, here's Tim Pool kind of on this whole Axios outline.
Saying on ABC's This Week, we are quickly turning into a banana republic. Alluding to late-night host Jimmy Kimmel's suspension following an FCC warning over comments he made, I love the unrepentant evil that is these psychotic demons. I've had to say this now probably 800 times. I'm going to have to say it again later today. I'm going on Piers Morgan's show. Jimmy Kimmel was going to double down. The executives said that advertisers and affiliates were angry and asked him not to do it. Jimmy Kimmel was refusing to apologize and wanted to further blame MAGA. When he refused to back down, they pulled his show. The FCC comments played somewhat of a role, but not really.
That's pretty much it. Essentially, Kimmel was going to double down. Advertisers were going to yoink, get out of there. And Carr was like, also, you may have violated some certain FCC rules. And then they were not a fan of that. Now, here's where things get interesting. And I don't mean Hillary Clinton, although fine. Well, a lot of the outrage, the pearl clutching, as it were. Hillary Clinton sent out on the 21st. "Jimmy Kimmel and other late-night comedians have certainly said things about me that I found offensive, even outrageous." "It never crossed my mind to call up the networks and say, quote, 'Hey, get rid of this guy, because that's not how America works.'" Then she advertised a little interview she did with the New Yorker, because, of course she did. Only here's the thing. Hillary Clinton absolutely did get people pulled down for their speech. Douglas Mackey wrote, "Madam Secretary, it crossed your mind to call up Senator Klobuchar, the FBI, and the Department of Justice under the Obama administration and have me arrested for a humorous meme about your campaign. You then celebrated my unlawful and wrongful conviction, which was later overturned by a federal appeals court. Sit down." We're going to talk about this a little bit later, this kind of weird bifurcation the left has and how it gets extremely violent. But we got to continue here. Scott Jennings, friend of the show, of course, on CNN, on Abby Phillips' show often, as well as his own show on radio every afternoon. He really said it best, quote, "So basically, his employer suspended him for being an insensitive jerk, and we don't live in an authoritarian regime." Got it. All weekend, you've been hearing about how this is fascism. It's crystal knocked. Oh, it's going to be the end of free speech. Well, not for people on the left. Although this statement from Sinclair has been getting like next to no coverage today, and it bewilders me. From Sinclair, quote, "Tonight," this was Friday, "Sinclair will continue to air ABC network programming as scheduled in the late night time period." Now, wait a minute. Didn't Sinclair issue this statement that they were going to air kind of a Charlie Kirk memorial, a Charlie Kirk life in summary across their Sinclair stations in place of the Jimmy Kimmel live whatever on Friday night? Why would Sinclair feel the need to suddenly backtrack on that? What's the deal? Quote, "The Charlie Kirk special will instead be available on the National News Desk YouTube channel, ensuring viewers can continue to enjoy ABC programming while also providing full access to the special online." That's a very strange statement to put out there. Why? Well, according to the New York Post and reporting from the Post Millennial, the Charlie Kirk tribute was scrapped by Sinclair after the local TV giant got threats against its ABC stations. Ah, there it is. So according to the article from the New York Post, several of the affiliate stations received local threats, including like violent threats, bomb threats, and well, it just so happens that one guy in Sacramento, California, fired several shots into the lobby of an AC affiliate in Sacramento. I'm going to repeat that one more time. A man on the left, and we're going to talk about that because we have all of the motive stuff right here. A man on the left in Sacramento, California, fired shots into the lobby of an ABC News affiliate in Sacramento over the weekend. After Sinclair announced and ABC they were pulling Kimmel from the air, Sinclair clearly responds by yanking their planned special off of the air, and they're going to throw it on YouTube somewhere. Now, we do happen to have information from the shooter's X account, because at first, local authorities weren't going to release anything about the guy. They weren't going to release his mugshot. They weren't going to release his name, which, in case you're wondering, that is always very, very suspicious. Whenever you have some type of local government authority going, yeah, this person committed a violent crime, they fired these gunshots, or they committed this shooting, we're not going to release their name or mugshot anyway because why? Because people might make inferences. They might look this individual up. Well, it turns out that we looked him up anyway. The individual's name is Al Hernandez Santana, a 64-year-old who happens to have a very active X account, who seems to have posted a lot of really egregious posts encouraging violence. About Charlie Kirk, quote, "I think the word empathy that made up the New Age term did a lot of damage to Charlie Kirk's carotid artery." Lovely. Moving right along, other amazing posts from this empathetic individual here. "Where is a good heart attack when we need it the most? Please join my thoughts and prayers for the physical demise of our fearful leader." That was on the 18th of September. And then, angry about a ruling about immigration customs enforcement in Los Angeles, he said, quote, "The height of irony for Stephen Miller to accuse a judge of insurrection on January 6th after his boss cheerleading the violent mob struck Capitol Police with metal poles, bear spray, and spread feces inside the chambers. Trump is a traitor who in years past would be put to death. And he just so happened to fire a bunch of shots into an ABC affiliate. Oh, by the way, then Sacramento authorities did what they do best. They let him out on bail. I'm not joking. They let the man who fired shots for political reasons out, and there's we don't know any kind of a motive. Here was the local affiliate.
The FBI has arrested the man accused of firing shots into Sacramento's ABC 10 station.
I'm so sorry. I have unfortunately blown the great ending to this story. The FBI has since arrested him after he was let out on bail.
He's now facing federal charges. As we reported, police arrested 64-year-old Anibal Hernandez Santana for the shooting. He was released on bail just hours later, but now he's back in jail.
Did you hear that? Radio crew, I'm not sending you to commercial yet because we need to make that clear. Sacramento released a man who fired gunshots into an affiliate. People need to understand this, all right? So, for example, where I am here in Indianapolis, there is a station called Fox 59, and there are people who think Fox News controls the programming at Fox 59. No, it's controlled by Nexstar. It's actually kind of a News Nation affiliate. And affiliates make a lot of their own decisions regarding programming. They have their own news manager. WIBC and Little Rock, they all have their own little news managers. It is insane. What he did is insane. They let him out right afterward. Thank God the FBI intervened. Unfortunately, this is only the first of these incidents. We got to talk about it over on the live stream. Radio crew, we're going to see you after the commercial break. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. All right, on the live stream, I'm not trying to fearmonger you guys. I'm not trying to whip you up into a frenzy. Terrorism in this country from the left is on the rise, and it is not slowing down. It is the result of a cornered animal. These attacks are attacks of what one would consider a cornered animal. Not cornered because of some federal intervention that has tried to squash these people, but because the very public in this country that was once cowed and terrified by the left, that same public has now spit that group out and is refusing to pay attention to their nonsense anymore. The idea that if you don't bow down to all 815 of their pronouns and also walk out in public and admit and apologize, oh, I am racist, I'm so sorry, and admit that women and black people and brown people, whatever that means, they have it so terrible in this country and Christians are evil and what we really need is all of this left-wing stuff. If you don't believe in that, which the country no longer does, the left has gone around for the last several years saying we are being eradicated, we are dying, we are being erased from existence, they're going to kill us, they're going to set up Handmaid's Tale. Please do not take my word for it.
Hey, MAGA, just in case you're unaware, we are not going to stop. We are never going to give up the fight. We will always stand up in the face of adversity.
This was posted this weekend. There are hundreds of clips like these across social media.
We will fight fascism tooth and mother nail. I will scrape and scratch till my last mother breath to ensure that my children...
What do you think she's going to say? What is she going to fight tooth and mother bleeping nail to ensure? That her children, what? Again, look for the things that the left is deeply passionate about. The public does not believe the same things that they do.
And every other child in this country and this fucking world are able to keep their rights and be able to get the education that they need, real education.
That means public education.
Get the health care that they need and live long.
That means trans care for kids, the health care that they need.
Productive lives and thrive. You are not going to stop that. You are not going to hold our daughters down and make them handmaids.
There's the handmaids thing. There's that same classic. You're going to kill us. You're going to rape us. You're going to enslave us.
You will not dumb this country down. We will win. We will be on the left side of history. Toodles.
It is the same kind of stuff, and it leads to direct, actionable violence. Not even just to people on the right side of the aisles. This man fired into an ABC affiliate because they announced Kimmel was being taken off the air. Why? Because immediately the left wing swooped in and claimed from the tops of the roofs, fascism is here, it's coming to kill you, they're going to destroy all of us, you need to rise up. I will remind you, Chris Murphy, in response to all of this, recorded a video where he encouraged people to take to the streets. Take to the streets. Well, Al Hernandez Santana took to the streets, didn't he? Additionally, because of course it doesn't stop, the individual who plotted to kill Brett Kavanaugh, more evidence is now coming out because his sentencing is coming up. Remember when Brett Kavanaugh, this guy was camped out preparing an assassination plan to kill a Supreme Court justice, and you and I were told we had no idea what the motive was. Now we find out. According to an extensive report here from National Review, the motive for the planned mass assassination is also very explicit: to stop the court from overturning Roe v. Wade and replace Kavanaugh and other conservatives. It was a plot to kill multiple conservative justices with liberal justices to be appointed by Joe Biden. Quote, from the would-be assassin, I thought of Roe v. Wade and gay marriage both being repealed has me furious. What do you think would happen if Kavanaugh died? Also, the right of a 5-4 majority. So if one conservative justice dies, then it becomes 5-4 for the left. There's like 9 or 10 of these kind of comments. And the left will continue to come out on major media platforms and say, oh, we don't know what the motive, we have no idea. Is this what the left is talking about right now? Absolutely not. We're going to talk about what they were focused on instead here in just a second because it matters in context. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. Don't go anywhere.
You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Over the weekend, the left made a big amount of hay about what? About the Charlie Kirk memorial. That is what the left has lost their mind over. And I'm not just talking about congresswomen, although they certainly freaked out on their various news platforms and said really gross things. Individuals on the new media for the left, those who are antagonizing, those who are encouraging these violent acts of terrorism, painted the Charlie Kirk memorial as some type of fascist, Nazi, super far right-wing rally. And they had to. There's a little bit of surprise that I'm kind of shocked. I'm seeing some people act surprised that they were going to cast as much hate and anger about the Charlie Kirk memorial as they did, because they had to. They had to. We all knew they had to. Because when the left has someone that they value, that they cherish, that is shot or is killed, even if it's not a political assassination, what do? They burn down city blocks. They loot stores. Not for bread and other necessities, as AOC may claim, but for TVs and other electronics. Everything but work boots. And to see the right get together 90,000 people, over 90,000 in attendance in Glendale, Arizona. 70,000 completely filled up every seat at State Farm Stadium. 20,000 filled up the adjacent Arizona Diamond Stadium. Tons of people outside in secondary and tertiary overflow zones. And as one of the local Federation of Police chapters pointed out, they had officers ready to go. Ready to intervene if there was any civil unrest. They said, and I quote, there was none. The officers got to watch the service on a big screen and stood for the national anthem. That's according to the Glendale, Arizona FOP. There was like 1, 2 actual protesters there. I mean, the Westboro Baptist Church threw a fit, but, the Westboro Baptist is, about as Baptist as a ham sandwich is Jewish. So no one really cares what the Westboro Baptist Goobers has to say. I'm pretty sure that place only accepts untreated schizophrenics as it is. It was a really nice day. It was a wonderful and heartfelt event that is already people are getting whipped up into a frenzy over, and they have to. Now, there are a couple of moments that I personally enjoyed that I thought were just stellar. There were a lot of people from Turning Point USA that gave some really heartfelt speeches. As a Christian and, as your resident Bible-thumping independent Baptist, I love hearing "Great is thy faithfulness, and it is well with my soul" broadcast over national TV. It is incredibly sweet and lovely. I had the honor of being a Newsmax kind of go-to national correspondent during the event and got to share a little bit of my testimony as well. The best testimony over the entire day, as far as just a flat-out testimony of personal faith, to Charlie's faith as well, was given by Secretary of State, Acting National Security Advisor, Chief National Archivist, Grand Poobah, future Emperor of Mexico, and 30 other jobs, Marco Rubio. Check it out.
One of the things he wants us to take away from this, from all of this, is the following. His deep belief that we were all created, every single one of us, before the beginning of time, by the hands of the God of the universe, an all-powerful God, who loved us and created us for the purpose of living with him in eternity. But then sin entered the world and separated us from our Creator. And so God took on the form of a man and came down and lived among us. And he suffered like men. And he died like a man. But on the third day he rose unlike any mortal man. And to prove any doubters wrong, he ate with his disciples so they could see, and they touched his wounds. He didn't rise as a ghost or as a spirit, but as flesh. And then he rose to the heaven, but he promised he would return, and he will. And when he returns, Because he took on that death, because he carried that cross, we were freed from the sin that separated us from him. And when he returns, there will be a new heaven and a new earth, and we will all be together, and we are going to have a great reunion there again with Charlie and all the people we love. Thank you, and God bless you.
That's incredible. That is an incredibly articulate and concise. That is the gospel. Better than I've ever articulated it, for sure. Phenomenal from our Secretary of State and our acting National Security Advisor. By the way, to those out there who are continually say they're surprised by Marco Rubio, I again remind you, I am not. Marco Rubio has been and continues to be one of the best cabinet level officials in modern history, bar none. Also excellent, Vice President J.D. Vance, of course, who is very close to Charlie.
To die a young man in this world than to sell your soul for an easy life with no purpose, no risk, no love, and no truth.
I know it is not the point of this. I am very well aware this is not the point. This is just, yet again, something that I have echoed. The ticket in 2028 is Vance Rubio. To be clear, I've said it before, called it before, don't know who the Democrat candidate is going to be. It is Vance and Rubio.
Christ told us in the Gospel of John, I have said these things to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but take heart, I have overcome the world.
Excellent. We don't have time to go through all of Vice President Vance's points. He made a lot of excellent points. And then Erica Kirk, Charlie's widow. I have met Erica twice. We weren't, buds. I had only met her when she was with Charlie. The only thing I could say that I knew for sure about Erica before Charlie passed was that when Charlie was talking to me and he turned to say something to Erica, the tenderness that appeared in his voice instantly when speaking to his wife convicted me to my core in how I talk to mine. And Erica's half-hour speech is phenomenal. I very, very much encourage you to go watch it. Of course, the clip that is being played quite a bit is when Erica, with a level of grace from God and a humility and a peace that passes all understanding that only comes from the Holy Spirit, when she forgave Charlie's assassin, Tyler Robinson. An incredible moment, of course.
Father, forgive them, for they not know what they do. That man, that young man, I forgive him.
She cited the text from when Christ was being crucified, when he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Again, I said this at the beginning of last week. I'll make this very, very quick here. That though when Tyler Robinson was arrested, the very first thing I called for was that he be publicly hanged. And I still believe, by the way, that should be the appropriate punishment civilly and legally for his crimes. The thing that I am praying for now, most earnestly, is that Tyler Robinson come to Christ before justice is measured out in full. That the greatest way, the greatest rebuke to the devil, the greatest rebuke to evil itself would be to rip Tyler the assassin from its hands before his life ends. And there's a lot of people out there that are rather confused, apparently. I'm a little shocked by this as well. But we're going to talk about what the confusion is about. And then, of course, President Trump's remarks over on the live stream radio crew. Sorry, I got to send you to commercial. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. So much to say, so little time. Sorry if I'm a little verbose in getting through this. It's just a lot to cover, and we're trying to get everyone through it as quickly as possible. There is a bit of confusion over why Erica forgave the assassin. And we'll talk about this in some of the response section. The idea that someone should face their consequences for their crimes, the absolution of sin, Christ taking your sin upon himself and you accepting that sacrifice on your behalf, that doesn't absolve you of earthly consequences. It's not a get out of jail free card. That's not what salvation is. But forgiveness is a manner that is, as Christ has forgiven me, someone who is undeserving of salvation, so I will also forgive you. That doesn't mean in a legal way, but that means in a spiritual way for the process of restoration, man to man. So we'll talk about that maybe in a little bit here. Then President Trump got up to speak, and people lost their ever-loving minds at some of the stuff that he had to say. This had been going on for like 3.5 hours at this point. And it was touching. It was moving. I was sitting kind of via network, kind of where I am right now, watching everything play out live. And it was, I don't mean the same stuff in a monotonous fashion. I mean, it was the same kind reflections on Charlie, encouragement going forward, a little bit of political stuff in there, but that was Charlie's work. And so understandable. And then Trump got up, and Trump was Trump. And people lost their minds at this. I don't understand why. He was funny. He was just Trump. He was Trump rally Trump. And some of the stuff that he talked about specifically was in contrast to Erica's announcement of forgiveness.
His opponents, he wanted the best for them. That's where I disagreed with Charlie. I hate my opponent. And I don't want the best for them. I'm sorry. I am sorry, Erica.
He's just relaxing back and just being, he's breaking the tension, right? Is that the term there? He's breaking the ice, kind of there's this weird, again, you've just heard the widow of Charlie Kirk speak for a half an hour. It was the most emotional thing. She gave an amazing, amazing lecture on what they meant to each other as husband and wife. We might play that later if we get the time. On the relationship between husbands and wives. Why Erica is the definition of a Proverbs 31 woman. Incredible stuff. It's heavy. It's been a lot to drag all of these people through willingly, as they came willingly through this very emotionally tough memorial service. Trump gets up and he's just having a good time. And it's very much needed. It's the comic relief. It is a role that Trump plays.
But now Erica can talk to me and the whole group, and maybe they can convince me that that's not right, but I can't stand my opponent.
He's just having fun. He says, Charlie's looking down and he's frowning at me. It is just in and of itself funny. Trump then, of course, brought, Erica came back out on stage when they were singing America the Beautiful, and a tender moment. Hug, comforting, Trump hugging Erica on stage. It's a sweet moment. It is. It's a very sweet moment. I've seen a lot of criticism for it, but I am very much of the opinion that it is only right to expect the average of people in moments like this. And Trump, not average in a mediocre sense, but just you expect the person to come through. Trump is Trump. He rarely puts on a face and does kind of a show routine for people, and he didn't here. He was just himself. We'll talk about the reaction to this in just a second because it points to that calling for terror. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast. The response, as you might expect, to the Kirk Memorial didn't necessarily vary. It was a lot of mewling and whining from the far left because, again, the right got together and for 4.5 hours, if you don't count the people who got up at 3 and 4 in the morning to stand in line and pray and sing all the way up to the event. And it was a wholesome event. Also, by the way, not a lot of litter at all left on the ground in any way, shape, or form. People didn't trash Glendale. It was left nicer than when they found it. Also, props to Turning Point, the organization itself, who was able to put all of that together in under a week. You guys, I don't think, my wife was a band director and I was a science teacher and I was also a robotics coach and a track coach. And so setting up events takes a lot of work. I wish that it was, flick of the wrist, something easy you can just throw together. It takes a lot. They organized everything from the furniture to the setting up of the stadium to getting people into the security, all of that in under a week. It is a feat, an incredible feat. I've never seen anything like it. The Turning Point USA team is incredible. That's why, by the way, at least until the foreseeable future, I haven't asked my editors right here on the screen right now. In our bottom sponsor, Chiron, is a link to join Turning Point because they absolutely deserve every bit of credit. If you're a young person or an old person, go check out Turning Point USA. The response, however, was, as expected, embarrassing. As a human being, embarrassing. So, first of all, Stephen Miller got up and delivered a very Stephen Miller-style address. Very emotional. He is angry, and rightly so, at the injustice and the political hatred that led to the murder, the assassination of Charlie. And he got up and did what Deputy White House Chief of Staff Stephen Miller does. And he communicated that the fight is not over and that Charlie has not been extinguished. Here was Stephen Miller.
We'll defeat the dark. We will prevail over the forces of wickedness and evil. They cannot imagine what they have awakened. They cannot conceive of the army that they have arisen in all of us. Because we stand for what is good, what is virtuous, what is noble.
So this was very, very upsetting to a lot of people. So, for example, Justin Brannan, who is the New York City Council finance chair. Ah, yes, New York City, a bastion of influential intelligentsia in the political sphere. He called Stephen Miller's address beyond grotesque. Miller is a megalomaniac, unmoored Christian nationalist whose rage belies any notion of grief. So here was the big complaint. Number one is that the right didn't grieve correctly. See, when you grieve correctly from the left, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to call for guns to be banned, you're supposed to call for Republicans to be jailed, and then you're supposed to take anything that the person did and elevate them to a deity, which is a little awkward because Charlie didn't actually commit any crimes worth elevating to a deity. So they didn't have to find some obscure graduation photo of Charlie. You just pick any photo of Charlie recently. But anyway, that's how the left says you're supposed to grieve an important person. Brennan continues, he turned a funeral, was not a funeral, into a rally for Trump's war on the left. Even Kirk's foes are treating his death with more reverence than this. No, they are bleeping not. We're going to get to that in a second here. I do want to point out Stephen Miller is Jewish. So as far as he's a Christian nationalist, I don't know if you guys know this, but Christian nationalists and Jews, no, I'm afraid not. Anyone who loves this country is a Christian nationalist is only going to make Christian nationalism itself more appealing to average people. We'll talk about that a little bit with Jasmine Crockett in a couple of minutes here. There was one protester who was seen outside at the Charlie Kirk Memorial. According to Andy No, it was this trans Antifa member wearing a hijab named Brittany Erica Austin, just Eric Austin, now goes by Sumaya Dawood. Ah, yes. Yes, trans Islamists. Yes. Definitely not a free ticket to a crane in Iran or Gaza. Anyway, he said he regularly goes to Antifa direct actions with a rifle. I have reported on him a lot. I will encourage y'all again. The reporting from Andy No is stellar. But we have to get over to the new media reactions because right now you see a legacy crew of journalists and anchors. You see them on the major networks, the late night hosts. They're really fading out of existence because they tried to pander to the youth a little bit, and it just came off as really cringy and awkward. Stephen Colbert with his Vax scene. The youths aren't watching that. The average age watching Colbert, Kimmel, other late night left-wing talk shows are in the upper 60s, 70s, and 80s. By the way, nothing wrong with those age ranges. But if you are actively trying to appeal to the youths of tomorrow, it shows you're probably not doing the best job, considering that your ratings are worse than this show right here. So the new media on the left side of things that is replacing it are the streamers. And these streamers like Destiny, Stephen Bonnell II, David Pakman, their response to the Charlie Kirk Memorial shows you exactly why, continually, the left is being whipped up into a violent terrorist frenzy. From Stephen Bonnell II, quote, the Charlie Kirk Memorial is indistinguishable from a Nazi rally, and bleep anyone who wants to pretend it's not. Ah, yes. Remember when Adolf Hitler would gather everyone together and they would pray and sing hymns. Oh, no, that's right. Adolf Hitler burnt hymnals. Oh, okay. Okay. Remember when, they would get together and they would give the gospel from start to finish? Oh, wait, that was also outlawed. Doesn't make any sense. I mean, again, why you would take the advice from the man who was cucked by a Swedish man. Look, his former marital problems are just indicative of, his lifestyle choices. But this is a man who commands quite a following on the left. And therefore, you do have to take note when these idiots say certain things. From David Pakman, who took $8,000 a month for influencing on his David Pakman show, said the Charlie Kirk funeral is absolutely disgusting, riddled with speeches that only dial up the temperature. Stephen Miller's was particularly vile. Oh no, he said that the dark isn't going to defeat the light, and that those on the violent left who continue to act violent won't extinguish Charlie Kirk's legacy. That's horrible. And then he doubled down on it, saying Charlie Kirk's widow forgave the shooter, as if that's what erases what Trump, Miller, and others spewed during their eulogies. Pathetic stuff. You'll notice that none of these people, again, just like with Charlie Kirk's legacy, none of them actually share videos. They might share one out of context clip very occasionally, but it's only one side of the aisle that is sharing the full context clips, multiple things through of the entire memorial. And then in Congress, well, the youths they have elected over there, Jasmine Crockett is just angry. She's mad because Jasmine Crockett knows one thing and one thing only. If you're illiterate, you might as well yell about it.
You know what? One of the things I do want to point out that's not been laid out that honestly hurts my heart is when I saw the no votes, there were only 2 Caucasians.
So she's saying the only no votes that refused to not honor Charlie Kirk and not condemn the assassination of Charlie Kirk. She's angry that of the 58 Democrats that voted no, only 2 of them were white. That's what hurts her heart, she says.
For the most part, the only people that voted no were people of color because the rhetoric that Charlie Kirk continuously put out there was rhetoric that specifically targeted people of color.
Source.
And so it is unfortunate that even our colleagues could not see how harmful his rhetoric was specifically to us. And I can tell you that a month prior to him passing away, he had actually gotten out on his podcast. I wasn't aware of this at the time, but he got out there and he was talking negatively about me directly.
Talking negatively about her directly? Oh no!
So if there was any way that I was going to honor somebody who decided that they were just going to negatively talk about me and proclaim that I was somehow involved in the great white replacement.
Not what he said, remotely. You notice that her campaign, her office has not shared a video of this because it didn't happen.
Yeah, I'm not honoring that kind of stuff, especially as a civil rights attorney.
Okay, yeah, you're a civil rights attorney. I'm just going to throw this out here for the general public. There are a lot of people who have called me some particularly gross things. I do not want any of them to be beaten, attacked, or assassinated. People who have said some really, really, really gross stuff to me, about my family. I don't want them to be beaten or assassinated. I know crazy idea. By the way, remember I told you earlier that we were going to see later this condemnation of things that only makes them appealing to more Americans. Here's Jasmine Crockett saying that really it's MAGA who's the enemy. No one is more anti-America than the Make America Great Again crowd.
You can wave all the flags you want to, but I am telling you right now that the most unpatriotic people that we have in this country are MAGA and this president.
Also, accent change between clips as usual. Radio crew will send you guys off to commercial. We have to talk about Ilhan Omar and the dustbin of history. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. Now, again, Ilhan Omar, she's an interesting character for sure up in Minnesota. And by the way, Michael Knowles, the Daily Wire, also good friend, is speaking up at the TPUSA event tonight in Minneapolis. They have packed that place out, I believe. Fantastic. Pray for Michael's safety. And Ilhan Omar can just be mad, which, you know, she is.
I just think it was the video where it called him Dr. Frankenstein and said his monster shot him through the neck. I mean, obviously this is a person, and looking at this is someone who was a husband and a father, and in the days after his shocking death, that happened as a result of his views, or it happened as a result as he was sharing his views publicly with people, that people found it jarring to hear such criticism of that in the immediate aftermath of
what I find.
Props to the anchor. In this case, that's Kristen Collins, who pitched it up and said, look, right after he was killed for exercising his First Amendment rights, whether or not you say he was killed because of that or not, a lot of people are criticizing, right now is your time to come out and bash him as his widow and his children. To bash him as his children had not even been told that their father had yet been killed. Here's Ilhan Omar, the great brother marrier of Minnesota.
Jarring is that there are so many people willing to excuse the most reprehensible things that he said, that they agree with that they're willing to have monuments for him, that they want to create a day to honor him, and that they want to produce resolutions in the House of Congress honoring his life and legacy. It is one thing to care about his life, because obviously so many people loved him, including his children and wife.
If the next word out of her mouth is but, and you know it is, it shows exactly the kind of character that she doesn't have.
But I am not going to sit here and his life, because obviously so many people loved him, including his children and wife. But I am not going to sit here and be judged for not wanting to honor any legacy this man has left behind. That should be in the dustbin of history, and we should hopefully move on.
Okay, the dustbin of history. Just the classless garbage, the same kind of stuff. So the left likes to come out and complain that the right is dehumanizing them. When you don't say that that man is actually a woman, you're dehumanizing, you're erasing them. And then, right after a political assassination, can you imagine, by the way, if someone on the right came out right now and said that Melissa Hortman, the Democrat state representative in Minnesota, or state legislator in Minnesota, well, I mean, of course, we hate that they were assassinated, but, well, actually, we really just need to leave these ideas to the dustbin of history. That would be disgusting. And that person would be lambasted, as well they should be. There is simply no equivocation to this. There is no equivocacy to this whatsoever. And it will only continue. And now we need to head over to the most interesting conversations today, stuff that's going on in the administration, some new declarations. We got to bring the radio crew back from commercial. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast.
You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast. Now, back to the administration side of things. Today, we began with Carolyn Leavitt, White House press secretary, coming out and announcing that the administration was going to make good on President Trump's Truth Social post to essentially mark Antifa as a terror organization. There were some questions last week as to what that meant and how that would work. And then also the people on the left saying, well, there's no Antifa, it's a mystery, it's a figment of the imagination. Carolyn Leavitt gave a pretty excellent and very detailed summary of Antifa and the president's plan to sign an executive order on it later today, which he now has.
Antifa is going to be designated a domestic terrorist organization. The president intends to sign that executive order very soon as it's drafted, as soon as today, later this afternoon. And this is something the president campaigned on, because we have seen a rise in violence perpetuated by Antifa radical people across this country who subscribe to this group. And unfortunately, it's gone widely uncovered by many in the legacy media. It also went completely ignored by the previous administration. Not anymore. Not only, as you mentioned, were the bullet casings subscribed with Antifa mottos, if you will, in the heinous assassination of Charlie, but there have also been more examples than I could read off for you here in this briefing room today of violence from Antifa.
She does list several of these, again, numerous examples in Alvarado, Texas, of the trans Antifa individuals who essentially not only tried to assassinate different officials on ICE, local Texas officials, but also aided and abetted other Antifa individuals. Then over in Houston, in Portland, in Seattle, all over the country. And it really, I'm sorry, I'm moving through this Antifa article and list posted by some of the reporting from Andy No. Florida, Middle District of Florida. Activism, which consistently turns into terrorism on the left, has become far too common. And now the president has signed an executive order designating Antifa a terror organization. Also today, this was mentioned by President Trump yesterday during the Charlie Kirk memorial. There would be an announcement today regarding an administration study and a possible link found between the prenatal use of Tylenol and other acetaminophen and autism in children. Here was the president today.
The Amish, yeah, virtually. I heard none. See, Bobby wants to be very careful with what he says, and he should, but I'm not so careful with what I say.
So he begins by saying that the Amish, who don't take a lot of, again, over-the-counter medications, and don't get a lot of vaccinations for their kids, he said, well, there's a very low to no rate of autism with the Amish.
But you have certain groups. The Amish, as an example, they have essentially no autism. First, effective immediately, the FDA will be notifying physicians that the use of well, let's see how we say that. Acetaminophen. Is that okay? Which is basically commonly known as Tylenol, during pregnancy can be associated with a very increased risk of autism. So taking Tylenol is not good. All right, I'll say it. It's not good.
While you're pregnant. Sorry, we do have to cut with a bit of breaking news here. According to a public statement from Sinclair, Sinclair, again, is a large company that owns a lot of the affiliate stations. This is just coming in now. According to Sinclair's public statement, beginning Tuesday night, that's tomorrow, Sinclair will be preempting Jimmy Kimmel Live across our ABC affiliate stations and replacing it with news programming. Discussions with ABC are ongoing as we evaluate the show's potential return. So right now, some ABC affiliate stations across the country will be airing Jimmy Kimmel Live. Some will not be. We'll bring you updates. This is certainly not far from over. All that appears to be over so far is this narrative that the FCC totally got Jimmy Kimmel fired. That just appears not to be the case. Moving back to the issue again, just trying to keep up with the breaking news that's rolling across the screen right before we end our radio coverage and head to some of the bonus section of the show. The questions from the press were excellent. They were excellent. They were some of the best questions from the press that I've seen in a while on one of these. This is a very contentious issue. It's contentious across the political spectrum. And I think that looking into this, I'll put it this way. There is a Democrat strategist who I often appear opposite of on network broadcast television when we do political panels, named Kurt Bardella. And he posted this afternoon at 5. He said, quote, "My wife and I live with the reality of raising a kid on the spectrum every single day." It's the autism spectrum. "I don't agree with President Trump or with RFK Jr. on almost anything, but one thing I will say, I am thankful they have put autism front and center and have made it a top health priority." There's a lot of people who feel that way in this country. Something the Trump administration has done with aplomb, with expertise, is putting issues that Americans genuinely care about at the front and center of, at the very least, press conferences where questions are to be asked by various journalists on the left and the right. And Carolyn Levitt's crew has made certain to ask questions from a very wide variety of friendly, unfriendly, neutral, foreign, local, across the country, journalists and the press. And this brings us to the first question here is from Peter Ducey over at Fox News. And it's a really good question.
Mr. President, I'm curious, as you look at the trend lines,
Yeah.
how much of this is the causation of acetaminophen and how much is sort of better diagnosis, doctors, researchers having a better understanding of what is on the autism spectrum?
Do you want to do that? Sure, go ahead, Ron.
That's one of the canards that has been promoted by the industry for many years, that it's changed diagnostic criteria, better recognition. But there's been study after study done of that completely debunks that. One of them by the Mind Institute at UC Davis, University of California. But also it's just common sense, because you're only seeing this in people who are under 50 years of age. If it were better recognition or diagnosis, you'd see it in 70-year-old men. I've never seen this happening in people my age.
All right, we have to send the radio crew off to the end of show programming this evening. We're going to continue over on the live stream because there's a lot more to get into. Thank you very much for joining us, radio crew. We're going to continue over on youtube.com/Daily Signal, Rumble as well. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. All right, let's continue. So then my colleague, our White House correspondent, Elizabeth Mitchell, asked if the White House was going to alter any FDA suggestions on vaccination schedules, etc. Here you go.
You've been talking about reducing autism by spacing out vaccines.
Right, correct.
Would you like the other combined vaccines babies receive to be spaced out like MMRV?
I would say yes, but that just is, for me, it's a lot of common sense involved in this. It's a process, but we're looking, but it should at least be given separately. Now, it's possible that you can reduce them and I'd give them in small doses, but it's possible maybe in that particular case, the MMR wouldn't work in small doses, but you can certainly give them as separate shots. It's been proven to be very safe when you give them in separate shots instead of mixing. So I don't think there's any reason to do that. Do you agree with it? I'm not a doctor, but I'm giving my opinion. I don't think there's any reason to do that. So it's been proven to be safe when you break them up. But MMR by itself, I've heard bad things about it for many years. Yes, please.
Mr. President, is the spectrum too broad, in your opinion? For research purposes, you are dealing with a population of children who might have social boundary difficulties, and then you have children who are, going to grow up to be adults in diapers.
By the way, this question that Elizabeth asked is one of the best questions. It's getting next to no coverage, and it is a very, very important question to ask. We've taken mental illness, or see, it's not even the right word. Producer Nick, feel free to chime in here. We've taken mental irregularity, disorder. What's the word that the more socially accept? Neurodivergence. That's right. Straying from the normal. And we've made it this, it's all on the same spectrum. So like if you get, like the more autistic you get, you eventually reach like life skills retardation. Like you're all on this like same spectrum, like they've done with gender. Guys, that's just not how it works. There are different mental disorders. There are different genetics disorders. There are different behavioral disorders. There are different social disorders that kids can have, develop, or are chronic. And they are not all along the same pathway, the same spectrum. People who tell you that don't understand how it works. And Elizabeth asking this, by the way, I didn't send her this question. I wouldn't have thought to ask this question. It is the most important question because it's the way that we do the gender stuff. Well, I mean, gender's really a spectrum and male and female, and you just kind of slowly become hermaphroditic and then, no. Here's the president's response to again, I haven't had the chance to tell Elizabeth yet, but a very good question.
We don't know how broad the spectrum is. We don't know exactly where it starts and where it ends, but we do know what we're going through. We're going through some very serious trouble, and we know autism. I mean, it could be bigger, it could be small, a little bit smaller, but the number is unacceptable. And the number, the way it's come down, because the spectrums remain the same, the number, the way it's come down.
What he just said is correct and it is extremely important. I'm going to back it up, let him say it just one more time here.
I mean, it could be bigger, it could be small, a little bit smaller, but the number is unacceptable. And the number, the way it's come down, because the spectrums remain the same, the number, the way it's come down is just unacceptable, meaning come down to that level of 1 in 10, 1 in 12, 1 in 31.
Okay, so what the president alludes to very briefly there is that there was a time in the mid 80s into the late 90s in which we essentially started marking all kinds of things as autism. Just like in the early aughts, we started classifying everything as ADHD. Oh, your kid's not listening in class? ADHD, quick, give him a pill. And we started characterizing so many things as mental illness, the number skyrocketed. That is a huge part of it. Is that all of it? No. But is that some of it? Absolutely. When you start characterizing everything as a mental illness, oh, my child doesn't really like hanging around other kids. Wow, is he introverted? No, he just must be autistic. Well, all of a sudden, you have huge numbers. Now, again, looking at the root causes of autism is an incredibly important thing. And I think the work that R.F. Kennedy and that Trump and that Dr. Oz are doing is crucial for the country, putting the focus there. Even if I, by the way, don't agree with whatever findings that they come to the conclusion of. But pointing out small, identity-specific things like acetaminophen, Tylenol, which, by the way, Trump is currently being mocked on social media for not being able to pronounce the word acetaminophen. I don't know a lot of people who don't usually focus on this particular aspect of medicine, unless you're like a nurse or someone who has bought a lot of generic Tylenol and had to say it. Acetaminophen is not one that is normally rolls off the tongue, but it is fun to say. I'm afraid that I just am not seeing the outrage. Producer Nick a couple of weeks ago showed me the studies specifically that acetaminophen is not healthy for women who are in gestation. It's not healthy. It's really, really bad on the liver. And if that might be a link to autism, I was told that this was going to come out there and R.F. Kennedy was going to have the tinfoil hat on and they were all going to dance around like monkeys and it was going to be some super conspiracy theory. It wasn't. You were told it would be. It wasn't. This press conference was detailed. It was specific. Now, by the way, there are a couple of studies that show that in the Amish community, the number isn't 0 per se, but it is lower than in the traditional community. The Amish community is also studied less often, but here in Indiana and Ohio, we have a lot of Amish. That's the community that was studied. There's a study from 2010. I did look it up. Sorry, we do a lot of planning, before the show, and we mention studies to each other because we're nerds. And in 2010, it was like 1 in 270. I'm going to look that up for you here. So again, from my perspective, I'm encouraged to see what I was told was going to be the worst thing ever. It was going to be the end of all things, and it was going to be conspiracy land. That's not the case. Based on a 2010 study of nearly 1,900 old order Amish children in Ohio and Indiana, the estimated autism rate was approximately 1 in 271. This rate is lower than the rate reported in the general U.S. population at the time, which in 2010 was 1 in 166. So it is far less, but not necessarily unheard of. But, 1 in 271 is fairly unheard of. Producer Nick, do you have anything to add? I was a more bio pre-med on that side. You studied more kind of the neurochemical side of pre-medicine there.
Yeah, I did have a specialization in biochemical research specifically. I think really the overarching takeaway here is the lack of research that has occurred in this area due to a lack of funding. One of the positive things that we can all agree on, I think, is the concentration of the administration on this subject will lead to positive movement, because you can't really predict what the research is going to say as much as you want to. And if they're being as transparent as they have been in the past, if it comes out and it's not very favorable, the research conclusions that you can make, I think they'll be honest and retract some of the statements or modify the plans that they have placed.
Again, consistently, and I think that's very well put. And kind of the final video clip that I have on this is right down the middle of the lane on that one. The idea that we've had for a long time where mothers would ask questions about pregnancy, they would ask questions about nutrition, and they were shamed. They were mocked and scorned. How dare you question the FDA's grain pyramid of justice? And how could you possibly suggest your children maybe shouldn't have activated charcoal in their toothpaste for their kids? And how could you suggest fluoride might not be good for them to drink in the water supply every day? And they were scorned for it. I want to get your feedback on that, producer Nick, but here's RFK Jr. saying what has needed to be said from the federal government for a very, very long time.
Some of our friends like to say that we should believe all women. Some of these same people have been silencing and demonizing these mothers for 3 decades because research on the potential link between autism and vaccines has been actively suppressed in the past. It will take time for an honest look at this topic by scientists. But I want to reassure the people in the autism community that we will be uncompromising and relentless in our search for answers.
The idea that if a mom asks a question, your immediate response is to go, oh, you're stupid. What are you, some kind of anti-vax idiot? No, that's not how you work with the community. By the way, that's why the left lost the Make America Healthy Again movement. There was a time when the crunchy moms, the granola moms, were all on the left. Now they're not. Now they are over on the right populist side of the aisle. Why? Because the right is most often willing to say, let's take a look at it. Now, maybe the answer that you get isn't going to be favorable, and then that requires okay, well, my questions are answered, even if it's not the answer I was expecting. But at the moment, just writing people off because they have a question about something, you saw this in 2020. Well, it was really suspicious. That guy had like a van load of ballots he was taking someplace. What's up with that? And instead of saying, yeah, we'll look into that and tell you where that van went and where that came from, it was, you're an idiot if you question anything about election integrity. Actually, it's misinformation. Russians planted the laptop at Hunter Biden. That kind of nonsense drives away Americans. And by the way, it's one of the reasons this show exists. So the home radio station that I'm a part of, that I normally, our first broadcast out of, it's why WIBC is the only radio station, even though we syndicate to many, that is listed down here. It's the very first station that we're out of. And at that station, a lot of the other show hosts during the day, God love them, are in Indianapolis. Like they are in the city. And as a result, a lot of things that they focus on, through no fault of their own, are focused in the suburban Indianapolis and Indianapolis itself. I live outside of Indianapolis. I live in like the central Indiana area. And I like to think that there are a lot of people in this country who don't live in the major cities or in the suburbs of cities around the country who never really get talked to, whose questions never really get answered. Instead, they get gatekept. They get a bunch of high, fancy corporate scientific words strung together incorrectly to keep them out, while the better and more intelligent and academic minds, they figure everything out for you. And then 5 years, 10 years from now, you'll find out everything they told you was the safe thing for your child is actually bad. Don't give them this. Oh, it'll give them ulcers. Oh, it'll erode the enamel off of their teeth. That's activated charcoal, by the way. That kind of stuff occurs. And parents go, well, who's going to be held accountable for this? Oh, no, we just gave this person over here a job at this pharmaceutical company or a chair in this medical organization, or now they're heading up the entire American Medical Association. And you're just told to ignore it and go back to your gravel and your oatmeal, you stupid peasant. That era of American society is over. That era is finished, because it turns out that the college degrees that are given don't bequeath knowledge. All it bequeaths to you is a lecture on lesbian dance theory, or if you're at Indiana University and you are perhaps violating state law by requiring your School of Dentistry students to still sit through scientifically inaccurate LGBTQ plus lectures. Why? Because it actually makes them better dentists? Why? Because it actually imparts knowledge? No, you have a social axe to grind, and if anyone touches your precious little social experiment of super justice, then you'll end up in front of the entire country saying,
hey, MAGA, just in case you're unaware, we are not going to stop.
Saying encouraging violent stuff or firing off weapons into ABC affiliates. Right now, there is a group of Americans on the right and on the former left who are tired of the same hyper-social justice-y, Karen liberal pearl clutching that has dominated American politics ever since Obama's second term. America is done with it, with the advertisements, with families of improbable genetic origin, with ads that actually don't show people using the products correctly. We're talking about pregnant people instead of pregnant women, and getting cops fired because they made a political donation to Donald Trump. People are done with that. And yeah, sure, maybe the administration, there's some rocky bumps along the way, but that is far more preferable to see the National Guard rolling down the street of Washington, D.C., and seeing crime rates plummet than seeing the National Guard roll through Minneapolis to make sure people are shut in their homes for a disease that the government would not even tell you from whence it came. And Americans have every right to be fed up with it and to toss it completely out of the window. With that said, we'll be back tomorrow with a lot more. Thank you very much for tuning in. This is the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated, first on 93 WIBC. Take care.